Hi, welcome to Lead with a Coaching Mindset. Today, we're very lucky to have with us Elaine Lowe. She is the Chief of Talent Development at UNICEF, and part of her responsibilities are learning, leadership, and career development. I know Elaine for many years, even before she worked at UNICEF. How many years have been at the UNICEF
Oh my
for?
gosh, I think we've known each other for about since 2010, 11.
Yeah. Yes, many years, and as Elaine is a person that I really respect, admire. She has been doing wonderful work, and was lucky to collaborate with her in some projects over the years. So, thank you for accepting the invitation to be here with us. And we are going to be exploring together some examples about how you have seen at UNICEF leaders developing a coaching mindset, leaders who are committed to bring their best out of their people, but investing time in their learning, in their development. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your responsibilities, about what do you do?
Thank you, Damon. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for having me. I manage a team of colleagues who have responsibility for leadership development, learning and development, and career development. And what we have done is put career development at the center of learning. So we say to colleagues that in order for you to advance in your career, learning has to be a focus. And part of our coaching mindset that we encourage our leaders in particular to demonstrate is, we have all these competencies. We have 8 competencies, and we encourage our colleagues who have been coached to focus on 2 or 3 competencies at a time, 2 or 3 of the leadership competencies at a time. And there's some leaders, like I travel as part of my role, I travel to offices and have career conversations with staff. I have meetings with some of our leaders, and I've seen some amazing examples of leadership. And when I speak to them, what's a common theme is they'll say they've learned a lot from the executive coaching that they've had. They've learned a lot from the 360 feedback exercise that they've conducted and the debrief.
Mhm.
So it's all connected to how they see learning and becoming better leaders. Everybody's trying to become the best version of themselves because now we're in a position,
Mhm.
and probably have been in for many, many years, where we have to do more with less. So we have to operate at a more strategic level. We have to find ways as leaders to bring staff on board. You're leading, but you need to have followers, right? And our best leaders have the entire office following them without hesitation because they're still free to ask, to question, and challenge their leaders. So there are 2 leaders in particular I'd like to talk about because I think for me, the example was off the wall. That growth mindset that these leaders demonstrate openly. They talk about failures and not just successes, but they talk about failures, mistakes they've made, and the whole team learns from the mistakes. So there's no shame associated with not being perfect. Because in some organizations, and certainly even in UNICEF at times, a lot of people want to project an image of perfection, that they never make a mistake. And to have a leader who can say, this is what I did, it was not the best decision, but um, let's all learn from it. Let's all take the lesson from this. What can we learn? How can we normalize making errors, but not create shame around that?
So I think
I went back to the,
what I am hearing from what you are saying is that great leaders, first, they have the ability to be open to receive feedback because this is not all leaders are open. Sometimes people feel like threatened or
yeah,
scared or sometimes resistant to receive that feedback. But these great leaders take advantage that UNICEF offers them with 360 to learn and become
yeah,
a better versions of themselves. And
yeah,
that includes embracing the imperfection, that
yeah,
includes embracing learning from mistake versus
yeah.
leaders who want to look perfect. I think that my experience is, I don't know if you agree with that many times the leaders who want to look like everything is perfect is because they're insecure.
very insecure. So
So
there's
then
no
maybe go
humility.
together. Yeah.
You know, the humility of the leaders, our best leaders, is that they know they're not perfect and they want you to know that they're not perfect and that they learn from their mistakes and want all of the team to also learn and not associate shame with mistakes, but rather learning and growing from errors. You know, I mean, none of us are doing brain surgery. Nobody's going to die,
Yeah.
right? So it's lovely to see that. So I went to this particular office in was South Sudan,
Mm.
and I want to talk about this, the rep, how inclusive she was. So in our offices, especially in emergency duty stations, we have drivers who are assigned, usually in most offices, you have a driver assigned to the rep. So that's like the senior driver, most experienced driver, senior drivers. So in this case, I I wanted to meet with the drivers and just so I have the career conversations with all of the drivers and we have a group meeting and then I say, well, let's arrange for the one-on-one. And so I said, so who is Hamida's driver? And they said, we're all her driver. All drive her. When she came, there was one driver who was her driver, and she says, I want to get to know all of you. You're all equally important to me. So one week it'll be one person, another week it'll be someone else. And she, because of that, because you know, this driver will pick her up in the morning, take her to work, but it's also the person who takes her to her official engagement. So, and will then be waiting for her and take her home. So all of the drivers have had the privilege of getting to know her on a human level. She's not the rep when they're driving. Well, she's a rep when they're driving her, but when she's talking to them, she's another human being who values all of them equally.
Yeah.
And it's just that level of inclusion that not all managers recognize is pivotal to building team spirit, building staff morale, building loyalty, building that commitment that I'll do anything. I mean, there's nothing. I have to tell you, she had to have her funding, the funding for the office was cut, and she needed to make some colleagues redundant, right? We call it post-abolishment. And this happened just before the staff survey, where people got their letters, they were notified. I mean, they were formally notified, informally notified verbally, and then they got their formal letters because we have to give people 6 months' notice. Her office did among the best in the survey. Even though staff were leaving, they loved her so much, they were able to separate the situation from their circumstances. So there's a funding issue, that's one thing. But in terms of her leadership, in terms of staff morale, staff engagement, those they were off the wall. The figures
Wow.
were off the wall.
That's mean that people care about her so much because probably she cared about the people too.
She cares about her people. She
Yeah.
shows absolute respect for every single person. There's no hierarchy. They know she's a rep. She doesn't need to tell them, I'm the rep. They
Mm.
know she's a rep. They respect that she's a rep, but they know they feel respected by her. That
Mm.
level of inclusion you don't see everywhere. You know, she was an amazing leader. She's retired, but like amazing.
Yeah. And
Just the
what
way she
if you
spoke.
think if you would ask her, how did she get there? What do you think she would answer? What helped her
She
to be
had,
that
she
amazing leader?
has. She has had a lot of experience. She worked in Iraq, and I remember her saying, you know, when she was offered the rep position in Iraq, I think it was by the region, either by the outgoing rep, I think she might have been a dep rep, or it was a regional director. I can't remember who offered her the job. And she says, no, I can't. I wouldn't be able to do that. I don't think I could do that. And he said, no, you are the perfect person for that. And she said it was one of her most amazing opportunities in terms of how she worked with these men. You know, they loved her, all these government officials that she thought would not accept her because she was a woman, but they had worked with her as a dep rep. They wanted her as their rep, as
Mm-hmm.
the rep for the country office.
Mm-hmm.
And she said her gender, which she thought would be a problem, was not a problem. And it's just the way she leads. You know, the way she leads, she's very strategic, but she's also very human. And and just linking the way what UNICEF needed from government counterparts and civil society, but also ensuring that what they got from us was
mm,
exactly what they wanted. Just engage in them rather than we have in international development people who come and tell you what you're going to get without consulting you about
mhm.
what you need. She wasn't like that. She was consultative and just made such a difference to the country program in Iraq when she was there. We have some great reps. I have to say she's one of them.
And by the way, some people may not know what rep means. Rep is a
Oh, head of,
representative and in the head of the office of the
yes,
countries.
the head of the office.
So it's
Yeah,
the major authority, the leader of of each office in
yeah,
a country.
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
related to this, I was wondering that collaboration is one of the key values of UNICEF too. And I have been working with UNICEF for many years, and I know that the leaders who embrace these values
Yeah.
make a difference. Even you hired me to do some work around that. You remember, like to do some trainings about the new value when they came out.
Yes, yes.
And it seemed that if people really embrace them,
They did.
they can be these amazing leaders. The challenge is how people can do that. How they go from
Mhm.
intentions to really
Yeah.
doing it.
Practical applications. I think it helps when you have good leaders. You learn from them. You can
Mhm,
model when you have leaders who role model the appropriate behaviors,
mhm,
active listening, the way they ask powerful questions rather than tell you what to do. I think that makes a difference. And those leaders that provide developmentally focused feedback. So instead of telling you what you did wrong, they'll highlight ways that you could do it differently. So there's no shame in the fact that you didn't do it perfectly, but this is how you could do it in future. Just to be more mindful of eye contact or engage in the audience. The way they give feedback is focused
mhm,
on the on how to improve rather than what you did wrong.
mm. So
I've seen that.
more constructive feedback.
Very constructive, very, very constructive. And they're decisive. I've seen
Mhm,
great leaders who are very decisive. They take decisions, but their decision making is done in a way that empowers rather than disempowers. Because decisions can be taken that really leave you feeling disempowered.
mhm,
But I can speak about Hamida and I can speak about another rep. I saw him in a team meeting where all the staff in the office came to the meeting, and there had been a complaint about the staff making noise on a Saturday, which is equivalent to a Sunday in a Christian country. And he told them, he said, this is a problem, and they have complained. And I'm not going to tell you what to do. I
mhm,
know you know
yeah.
what to do, and I
Mhm,
expect you to do what
mhm,
you know is right. Because if they get upset with us,
mhm.
there will be consequences, and you won't be able to gather on a weekend, on a
Yeah,
Saturday.
yeah.
And they can mandate that from outside.
Mm,
So I'm leaving it the decision to you on how we were going to conduct ourselves going forward, especially on a Saturday when they're worshiping and they're observing silence. They don't want to hear our noise because we don't worship on that day. It's not acceptable. So I'm leaving it up to you because I know you know what to do. I know you know how to handle it. I sat there
mhm,
and I'm like, wow.
mhm,
He empowered them,
mm,
literally said, go make the right decision about how you behave on a Saturday. So I felt that that was him saying the decision will be if you make noise, we will lose the rights to gather on a Saturday and make noise and get together. But I'm not going to make that decision. I'm going to leave it to
mhm.
you to determine how the outcome will look. And he said something about the outcome is dependent on you. So I leave it to you. I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
They all know what the outcome is going to be if they don't get their act together. And he said, be your brother's keeper, something like that. So
Mm,
if I mess up, my neighbor will know I'm messing up and needs to say
mhm,
something to me. I loved it. I loved it. I loved that level of emotional regulation and
mhm,
awareness, on he's not going to get upset. regardless of what is happening. He was the coolest cat, cool, cool, cool. Just said, this is a complaint I've received, and these are the consequences if we don't change our behavior. And I'm leaving it up to you. I
I
don't
think
know.
that this collaborative approach makes a big difference when
Yeah,
people he share facts and
yeah,
engage people
yeah,
in
yeah,
deciding what to do. I think that makes a big difference for
yeah.
great leaders.
And another thing that I saw with him, I mean, I see it with all the top reps. I mean, honestly, I could say the same thing about Hamida, but what I saw with him was his commitment to the success of all of his staff in that office.
Mhm.
Like bringing me in to do the career conversations and to have to meet with the staff one-on-one, to have these conversations, but also to do workshops and, you know, enable people to understand how they need to better manage their careers was one thing. But just I remember like his dep reps, we have these UN country team programs that are run out of Bonn. We have different leadership development programs that he had been on, and he would write and say, Elaine, when is the next UN country team development program? When is the next DEPREP Leadership Initiative program? Because I have my dep rep, I think he'd be amazing. I want to invest in him or her. I just found that he really, and he would say, Elaine, I think so and so needs a coach. Who would you recommend? I need someone who's going to help him or her to think more strategically and just present their facts because they're bright. They're very bright, but sometimes it just doesn't come out the way, it needs to come out. And I want to help them to just be the
Mhm.
best version of themselves when they're talking, not to get caught up in the nerves. I mean, he's amazing. Just totally amazing.
Great. So, and to start wrapping up, when you have been working training leaders and developing leaders and offering coaching to leaders so they can be the best version of themselves for many years. What do you think are some of the challenges for leaders to implement and to do all of the things that we share today?
Certainly for leaders in UNICEF, their reality is, especially those who are working in emergency contexts, or humanitarian contexts, as we call it, time
Mhm.
and the stress levels that they operate under. So, like, sometimes they want to do it differently, but there's a rush. Everything has to be happening. There's so much coming at them all at once. They need to be, they need to meet the needs of their supervisors. They need to attend those meetings with other peers. They need to support their team. They have their own direct reports as well as the broader team, everybody in the office. There are a lot of demands on them, and sometimes, even though they have been coached and know what to do in the heat of the moment, they may not always remember the best approach because they're human. They're human. But I would say we have managers who it's more part of their natural response to situations. They're quite calm, very, very regulated, very mindful and aware of how they interact with colleagues. And some will tell you I learn a lot from my coach. Some will tell you I've done a coaching course so I can improve my leadership. And some will say I've been leading people for many years and I've learned along the way from my mistakes. They're different there, and all of them have a different journey, but I think ultimately they tend to demonstrate the same positive behaviors, and they're very careful how they interact with staff, what they say. They never say, I told you so. They take that feedback and they really think and give due consideration. I've had a rep call me, a representative, a head of office call me and say, Elaine, I got my 360 and I've had 360 feedback and I've had my debrief and I've had my 5 hours of coaching and I'd like some more with the same coach because it has helped me and I think I need a little bit more hand holding
mm,
to become even better,
mm,
just to get there where it becomes more my natural behavior rather than I thinking about it. Because the coach had held him as an accountability partner. So there was a little check-in, there was regular check-ins. How did you demonstrate this? Based on the three competencies that he fell down on. And he's one of our top ones today too.
no. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of these examples. And my experience, Elaine, is also working with different kind of organization, not only humanitarian, but non-profit or for-profit
Yeah,
or
yeah,
universities.
yeah,
This issue of time
yeah,
is there is so much on the plate
yeah,
that even though you want to spend time in developing others, in having these coaching moments
yeah,
under pressure and under stress,
yeah,
it's difficult. And this is, I think,
yeah,
I believe, is one of the main challenges
yeah, it's
for
time.
leaders how to find the time.
How to
Uh,
find the time.
and also sometimes I like to ask some of the leaders that I work with, what is the cost if you don't do it? What is the
Yeah, I
cost?
think
Mm,
for some of them, the cost is that they haven't been able to bring their team along. You
mhm,
know, because they're taking decisions rather than helping the team to grow to that
mm,
point where they can take decisions in their absence. You know, they're not asking questions to help people to think more critically about what has happened or what needs to happen next. They're, I don't know, I think the best of our managers are our more experienced managers who have come through the system and learned along the way, made mistakes, and had coaching, had 360s that they really took seriously in terms of the feedback, and they embrace that. But I think the biggest problem is when you're under pressure and someone has given you something that if you took 10 or 15 minutes to help them to give them the feedback on how they could improve it, but you don't have that 15 minutes, you got to correct it yourself. And that's happened to me where I've had to make the change because it's needed now. I don't have the time. But what I've done is gone back and said, I did make these changes. Here are the changes I made, and these are the reasons why I made those changes. And I hope you're not feeling bad that you didn't give me good quality work, because that's the last thing you want someone to feel is that it's
mm,
rubbish. So you've gone and changed it. But it was changes I needed to make, and I hadn't had the opportunity to look at it early enough to then have the conversation. Again, time. So it was at the last minute I thought, let me look at it before I send it forward. I didn't have the time to have the conversation, but I did do it after.
Right,
We
right.
also have the challenge where not all of us are in the same location. That is problematic because if you then have to go and schedule a meeting to do it online as opposed to, hey, come, I have something to tell you, I have something to show you. It's different when you
Yeah.
can just do it in the moment. Takes 5 minutes rather than you have to schedule, you have to check calendars.
So
That doesn't happen.
this is one of the challenges of hybrid work, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Elaine, we need to finish here. Anything you want to say to close? Any last words?
I would like to say that I've enjoyed my interactions with you over these many, many years. I've grown as a person because of the feedback and the interactions we've had and watching you as a coach and learning from you as a coach. And I don't know if I've said thank you enough. So I just want to say thank you because
Mm,
although I'm nearing the end of my career, I've learned so much from you in the last 15, is it 15, 10 years, 10,
yeah,
15? I don't know how many
from
years
that.
it is, but
Yeah,
since
from that.
2010, I've learned so much from you and I really appreciate the interaction we've had and the relationship we've built over these many years. Completely trust you with some
Mhm.
of my most difficult managers and also those who are really gung-ho about coaching.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that trust, that relationship we developed over the years. And as I said at the beginning, I really respect you. You do amazing work for UNICEF, and it has been a pleasure to collaborate over the years. So thanks again for being part of this interview today and being our guest in our podcast. And I hope that you may come back in the future for another one.
Thank you, Damian. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.